Okay, let's stamp on some vellum here. I'm going to be stamping two different birch tree trunk designs using the Brilliance black ink on the front side of the vellum scene that I'm working on. I'll be working on both the front and the back throughout this entire video. Alright, using the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, on the back side of the vellum, I'm doing a whiteout application of this paint right on those birch tree trunks. That's going to make them very opaque, and I'll be able to place this vellum scene over anything I want to, and those birch trees will remain nice and white. Okay, just kind of being careful to stay within the line somewhat. And the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White dries very quickly. It's starting to make my paper, my vellum, buckle a little bit, but when it dries, it flattens out pretty good. This is a 55-pound vellum, so it's fairly thin, making it more kind of see-through, and it doesn't bend and stick that way. Okay, the front side of the vellum with the sedge filler right here, and going with the sedge filler in the back side of it to make that grass look like it's in back of the tree trunks where I stamp on the back side. So it's a really fun way to work when you're able to incorporate both sides of your stamping surface like this. All right, stamping these leaves in here in this Sweet Plum Memento ink. I wasn't quite sure how much I'd be able to see of those in the end result, but here comes some more birch trees in the back of the front birch trees. So that's another thing that you're able to do by blocking out those first applications, okay? Now I am painting right over the top of these birch trunks, so you have to wait for that ink to dry a little bit. I did smear a little bit, but not too bad. So anyways, when you paint this white right over the back of the birch trees, you'll retain the detailing of those birch trees. Alright, so adding in some colored pencil, and I'm working the back side of the vellum. You can work on the front or the back. I choose to work on both sides. Okay, I usually lay down all of my foundation colors, and I work it pretty good, and then I use some colored pencils on the front side of it to get a little bit more of a stronger value addition, because anything that you add on the back side of vellum, when you flip it over and you view it from the front, you'll be looking through vellum, so it does knock down some of the value and intensity of all of your imagery and your media that you apply. But it's a good way to work because you can kind of get things established somewhat in terms of, I don't know, the coloring, the lighting within the scene by working it on the back side. And then if it's not what you want, it doesn't show through as much as it would if you apply it in the front. Okay, now here I'm starting to apply a little bit more on the front when I get into the darker tones, just to create a little bit of a deeper intensity and saturation. Alright, that's the photograph that I'm going to be adhering this to, so I'm kind of getting my bearings, taking a look at what it looks like. Moving up through my value scheme with my colored pencils. You can see my colored pencils there on the left-hand side. And I'm working them from light to dark, okay? So I worked through those first three, or maybe it was two, but I'm getting into my darker ones right here and kind of defining some of the, kind of the rounded forms of this forest floor. And as I was mentioning in the live stream, the grass isn't supposed to be just this super flat surface like concrete or something. Alright, working on the front side of this now. I'm going into my trees and giving them a little bit of shading. We have that blue sky, so I like to bring in some of this blue onto objects that are white. Now I'm going on with the black, going right over the blue, so it gives it a little bit of a cooler color scheme. You can lay down whatever you want. These are birch trees. You can add a little bit of like a brown or something like that, but for the most part they're supposed to represent, white. but it is good to lay down some colors into them and also some shading. So on this one here, I'm going to create the centralized shading. So I kind of make it look as though the lighting is coming from, you know, pretty much the center of this card. So I'm angling my shadows accordingly here, okay? And now this is where I go a little bit overboard with this, with these paint pens. These are the 3mm paint pens, and I thought, I made it a little bit too cluttered with these dots. I've done this video, or this scene, in, you know, birch tree colors, but there was this purple tree challenge, and I thought, I want to play around with the birch trees with this purple color scheme. I think it kind of gives it a whimsical look, kind of a fantasy look of as far as the trees go. You know, there are trees out there with a lot of purple blossoms and such, but you can add it around. You can just, I don't know, make pine trees purple if you want to. Okay, so that's a big, huge system of these 3mm purple colored dots like this. And when I flipped it over like that, I thought, that was a little bit too much. It's a little bit cluttered. So one of the things that I did plan on doing anyways is going back in with lighter tones and applying those over the front of the card, okay? So you get this buildup of dark to light with these somewhat opaque acrylic paint pens like that. But it's looking a little bit too kind of cluttered right now, so I'll show you how I remedy that later on. Okay, now I wanted to get a little bit bright with a little bit brighter tones, so I didn't have a super bright 3mm, but I do have this set of Artistro paint pens that comes in a, I don't know, 42 colors or something like that, and it does have a nice bright pink, so I needed to add a little bit of a, kind of a color intensity with this one. And again, it looks like I'm applying it directly over the purple applications of paint, but I'm really applying it over the vellum. The purple is in the back of it. All right, now here's those same branches that I stamped in purple earlier as a foundation. Now I'm doing them again in black, just to kind of cover up some of that busyness of the colored dots. And like I said, the colored dots look great in greens and yellows and such, but on this one it was a little bit too much. Okay, so adding in some additional pink dots on the forest floor, it stands to reason that there would be some of these blossoms falling on the forest floor, you know, giving it a little bit of a carpet of a little bit of pink. All right, on the front side of this vellum, I'm applying some white pigment ink, kind of mellowing out some of the transitions and applications of colors a little bit. It kind of gives it that, I don't know, kind of a mystical look by adding that white in there. It kind of matches the photo too. All right, now I've applied spray adhesive on the photo. Now I'm adhering the vellum right over the top of it. And we have now merged those two pieces together like that, okay? Now from here on, you know, I have no choice. I can't work on the back of the vellum anymore because it's sealed up with the photo. When you do this, if you ever try this, sometimes you'll get little bubbles or something like that, or ripples in your vellum. I get that too. Just kind of expect that going into it, and then if you don't, it'll be, you know, it's all the better. Or you'll get little dots, you know, where the spray adhesive kind of builds up a little bit more. Just expect that going into that. That's one of the byproducts of doing this technique. On this one right here, I did pretty good though. But I'm showing people what I'm doing with this birch type of, you know, trunk application with the white pen here. I'm kind of making a line of it going up, and then I kind of mellow it out a little bit, and I kind of describe the contours of that birch. But doing this, I added the shadows on one side of the birch trunks, right? And then I'm doing the highlighting with the white on the other side, giving these birch trees a real rounded look, and I don't know, whatever they call that, a no-line types of stamping or something like that. But that's rendering for you, is when you kind of make things look a lot more three-dimensional, and when you don't have outlines over things, things can look a lot more rounded. Not that lines are wrong, you know, I mean, like stained glass things have outlines and things like that. Going into the meadow with some more of these little highlights like this, and I think this, you know, the scene really came together at this point in time, especially when I added those extra kind of stronger leaves in the foreground in black. And then I decided, let's add a little bit more depth to the bottom of the scene by going with these reeds large down there in the left and right corner, and leave a little bit of opening for the viewer to enter the scene through, like that. Adding a little bit more of the white pigment ink on the top portion, kind of mellowing out those applications of paint pens up there as well. And that is the card. I'll probably mat this and frame it off and format into a card, folded card. But that's working with vellum right there. You can get a lot of depth without doing any type of masking, which is really great. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.